Senator Graham.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you all for the what you're trying to do for the country here and present to us opinions from the military. And there's some strong opinions in this study. The numbers are pretty astounding to me in terms of the people who say they would feel comfortable with a policy change. But when you look at combat units, the numbers are pretty strong that the policy change may be disruptive. So we all have to balance what to do here. Jay, if you could, in a 1 or 2 pager, send to the committee how the system actually works in the Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marine Corps about what kind of evidence is used to discharge someone, what type of events that would lead to discharge. And I think there have been some substantial regulatory changes. I've looked at the Air Force regulations, pretty impressed with them, to make sure that we're making rational decisions. And I think it'd be helpful to the committee to know exactly what kind of events would lead to discharge, because the regulatory changes y'all guys have made, I think, have sort of cleaned up some abuses in the past. So that would be helpful if you could.
I would be happy to do that, Senator. I note, as we noted in the report, that approximately 85% of separations under this law are what we call statements cases, where the member himself makes a statement one way or another, I'm gay.
Right.
And if the law is repealed, obviously, if somebody says I'm gay, then it's irrelevant.
Yeah, and what I'm trying to point out to the committee that, generally speaking, it's not a situation where people are hounded day in and day out, that we're trying to prevent that, quite frankly. And the regulatory changes y'all guys have made, I think, has limited discharges to situations where you just described. And we can debate among ourselves as to whether you want to take that final step. But the regulatory changes have been substantial in terms of the type of evidence you would use for involuntary discharge from 1973 to 2010 is a sea change. Admiral Mullen, what has led to your change in thinking? If you could share with the committee just a bit about supporting policy change.
Well, I mean, fundamentally for me, Senator Graham, it has been the issue, this mismatch of an institution that I've been raised in my whole life that values integrity in many ways across everything we do, and then we've got thousands of men and women who were willing to die for their country that we ask them to lie about who they are every single day, I just fundamentally think that is wrong.
I understand.
And I worry, Senator Graham, that it is corrosive over time. It's not one of these things that's going to, light switch isn't going to go and it's going to be a disaster, but it is corrosive over time. And it is, particularly during a time of war, where we are focused so heavily on our combat mission, it undermines in ways our ability to do what we need to do because of the people side of this, because of the leadership focus it takes, et cetera. Right. And that's fundamentally what's led me to my beliefs and conclusions with respect to where we are.
I'm going to ask a question that is tough for a Navy guy to answer. Why do the Marines think the way they do? I say that jokingly, and I'm not joking. I respect you very much. The Commandant of the Marine Corps is in a different place. We'll have him come up and answer for himself here later on, but there is a difference of opinion on this issue between yourself and the Commandant of the Marine Corps and some other service chiefs, and I think that fact needs to be known and understood, and I'll give you 30 seconds to take a shot at it.
I think, well, I mean, the Navy and Marine Corps grow up together in many ways, so it's not like I haven't been around Marines.
Well, I know you have.
For significant
so have I.
portion
I'm
of my
glad
life.
you're on our side.
And I think the way it's been described both in the report, and it's not just the Marines, it's in the Army as well, the combat arms piece. They're unique. Typically, they haven't been, they haven't fought with or integrated with women. They're 18 to 24, trying to figure out their own, their own selves at that particular age, and it's that combination of things and the focus right now, obviously, with an awful lot of Marines in Afghanistan. So it is that, for me, it is that focus. I'm not sure it's that much different per se than it is that that exposure or that lack of exposure because of who the Marine Corps is.
Fair enough. Now, you worry about court challenges, Mr. Johnson and Secretary Gates. I don't know how the courts are going to come out on this. I'd be surprised, quite frankly, if they strike this statute down, but you never know with courts. Could you maybe supply to the committee, in the event that the courts did strike this policy down, some of the things that you would like to see Congress to do in that event to make this more orderly? Because you're worried about getting a court order on Monday, and Tuesday you don't know what the heck to do. So if that day ever comes, I would suggest that maybe you send us some information as a game plan where Congress could weigh in, and maybe the courts would be sympathetic to a way for Congress to get involved to handle that transition if it ever did happen. So I would just make that invitation to you to think ahead. Like I say, I don't think we're going to lose, but who knows? The last thing, and I think this is the most important thing for me, I've been in the military for a very long time, and y'all have served longer and more sacrificially than I have, so I certainly defer to our leadership. I just haven't heard a lot of people saying in the ranks themselves, I wish this policy would change. And I understand that civilian leadership in our country makes policy, and that's the way it should be. If you ask the question, and this was the only question you asked, are you comfortable with the don't ask, don't tell policy, and should it be changed? What kind of response do you think you would get if that were the only question you asked?
I mean, it's hard to know. I mean, one of the reasons, I think you'd get answers on both sides. And one of the reasons this work is so important is because 6 months ago or 8 months ago, we were just talking about anecdotal evidence. I mean, we just didn't have anything that was comprehensively done. And we do now, and I think we're much better informed.
But you'll agree with me, the question wasn't asked that way.
No, sir, but I mean,
No,
I haven't asked soldiers if they'd like to deploy for 15 months at a crack. I mean,
don't get me wrong. We're not asking for you to turn the war into a referendum. Would you like to go to Afghanistan and fight? That's never going to be asked of the service. You do what you're told. But this is a change of pretty significant change. And the one thing to my Democratic colleagues, passing the statute, repealing during the study, I think, was a bad mistake. We should be listening, not dictating on this. And I'm not asking the country to allow the military to make its own rules and take away public policy decisions from elected leaders, but I am asking us to listen a little bit better and ask better questions. And so I'll leave it with that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, we